Hello, friends. So, you decided to use silence. Maybe it wasn't even a conscious decision at first. It was an experiment born of frustration, an act of self-preservation. You just stopped. You stopped the double texts. You stopped initiating every conversation. You stopped filling the void with your own energy, your own effort, your own words. You went quiet. And in that quiet, you expected something to happen, a shift, a change. What you probably didn't expect was the psychological storm it would unleash. You're now a spectator to what looks like a full-blown spiral, a frantic cascade of anxiety, confusion, and desperation that's forcing both of you to confront the terrifying power of what's left unsaid. What you're witnessing isn't just a reaction, it's a complete unraveling, and it all began the moment you chose silence. But here's the question we rarely ask. Is this power or is it poison? Today, we are not here to offer you a simple manipulative tactic. We're here to pull back the curtain on the raw, unfiltered psychological hurricane that silence can trigger. This is not a how-to guide for emotional warfare. This is an exploration of the machinery of human connection, the illusion of control, and the dangerous territory you enter when you stop talking. We are going to explore why silence can feel so devastating, what it reveals about our relationships, and how to navigate its aftermath without destroying the very connection you are trying to understand. Section 1. The seductive lie of the silent solution. Let's be honest. You've seen the promises splashed across the internet, the bold titles that offer a simple, powerful solution to a complex, painful problem. Go silent and watch her come running. The number one trick to regain power is no contact. When you go silent, she goes crazy. These phrases are intoxicating because they offer a sense of control in moments when you feel utterly powerless. When you feel disrespected, taken for granted, or invisible in your own relationship, the idea that you can flip the script by doing nothing is almost too good to be true. It promises a magic bullet, a key that unlocks someone else's mind, letting you not only see their true feelings, but bend them to your will. The fantasy is that your silence will act like a truth serum, forcing out a confession of their hidden attachment to you. It's a story that reframes you from the chaser to the chase steed, from the supplicant to the prize. But here's the first, most critical truth we have to face. This is a seductive and dangerous oversimplification. The script that says your silence will reliably cause another person to spiral is selling you a fantasy. While pulling back can trigger intense anxiety in some people, these reactions are far from universal, and they're definitely not predictable. Human beings are not machines. You can't just input silence and expect a standardized output of desperation. The response you get is wildly dependent on a whole range of things: her attachment style, your shared history, her self-esteem, and the specific context of your last conversation. So why are we so drawn to this idea? Because it speaks to one of our deepest fears, the fear of being insignificant. When you feel ignored, her silence feels like proof that you don't matter. The instinct then is to turn the tables, to use the very tool you fear to prove that you are in fact significant. You want to see a reaction, because a reaction, any reaction, is proof that you matter. Her panic becomes the validation of your importance. Her anxiety becomes the measure of your worth. This is where we must draw a razor-sharp line between two very different actions: strategic withdrawal for self-preservation and the silent treatment as a weapon. Most relationship experts and therapists will tell you that intentionally using silence to control or punish a partner, what's known as stonewalling, is not a healthy strategy. It's a form of passive aggression that can be deeply damaging, destroying trust, and creating an environment of fear. That's the silent treatment as a weapon. Its goal is to cause emotional pain to force compliance. On the other hand, there's strategic withdrawal for self-preservation. This isn't about punishing the other person. It's about protecting yourself. It's about stepping back from a dynamic that is draining you or disrespecting you. It's about refusing to participate in a one-sided relationship. Here, the silence is a consequence of your new boundary, not the weapon itself. The goal isn't to make her lose her mind. but for you to regain your own. As we go on, we're going to deconstruct the psychological stages of her potential reaction. Not so you can orchestrate them like some movie villain, but so you can understand the profound emotional forces at play. Understanding this storm is the first step to deciding whether you want to start it, weather it, or just walk away from the coast entirely. Section 2. The pattern interrupt and initial confusion. It doesn't start with a bang. It starts with a quiet, unsettling break in the routine. At our core, we are all pattern recognition machines. Our brains are wired to predict what happens next based on what just happened. In a modern relationship, that pattern is often a constant low-level stream of digital connection. A good morning text, a random meme, a predictable reply within minutes, or maybe an hour or two. This rhythm becomes the subconscious heartbeat of the connection. Then you stop. She sends a text. "Hey, how's your day going?" The receipt says, "Delivered." The minutes tick by. 15, an hour, 3. At first, her brain does what brains do. It reaches for the most logical, least threatening explanations. This is the rationalization stage. Her internal monologue is calm. He's probably in a meeting. His phone's on silent. He's driving. He'll get back to me. These are simple scenarios that keep her world feeling orderly. There's no alarm yet, just a small flag that something is a little off schedule. But as the silence lingers, that open loop remains open. Some psychologists might point to something called the Zeigarnik effect to explain what happens next. Note, the original script rightly notes this is speculative. The principle suggests our brains remember unfinished tasks much better than finished ones. An answered text is a closed loop. An unanswered text is a task glaringly open, demanding resolution. It just gnaws at the edges of your mind. As hours turn into a day, the easy rationalizations start to feel flimsy. The silence starts to have weight. It's no longer just an absence of a response. It feels like a response in itself. The vacuum you've created starts to pull at her, and her mind, desperate to make sense of the void, rushes to fill it with stories. This is where self-doubt is born. Her internal monologue shifts from "he is busy" to "I did something." The mental investigation begins. She scrolls back through your last conversation. Was it what I said about her friend? Did that joke not land? Did I seem too eager or too distant? Every word, every emoji is now re-examined under a harsh light. She's hunting for a cause, a mistake she made that could justify this sudden break in the pattern. This first stage of confusion is critical. It's the moment the ground beneath her feet feels a little less solid. You haven't done anything aggressive. You haven't started a fight. You've simply stopped playing your part. You've taken your piece off the board. And by doing so, you forced her to stare at the empty space and question the whole game. The silence isn't empty. It's a mirror. And right now, it's forcing her to look at her own behavior and assumptions. This is just the beginning. The confusion is a slow leak in the dam. The anxiety is the flood that's coming next. Section 3. The rising tide of anxiety. The first 24 hours have passed. Those logical explanations have evaporated. The stage of calm rationalization is over. Welcome to the rising tide of anxiety. This is where your silence is no longer seen as a logistical problem, but as an emotional statement. It feels personal. It feels like rejection. Being ignored can activate some of the same neural pathways in the brain as physical pain. The social animal in us interprets being cut off as a threat to survival. Your silence, which you might see as just taking space, can be received by her nervous system as an active threat of abandonment. The uncertainty is the real torture. If you had sent an angry text, she would have something to fight. If you had ended things, she would have something to mourn. But silence offers no information, no closure, no target. So the emotions turn inward and morph into anxiety. Now, it's really important to get this. This reaction isn't universal. The intensity of this anxiety often depends on a person's attachment style, the blueprint for how we connect with others. Someone with a secure attachment style might get annoyed or concerned by your silence, but their core sense of self-worth is unlikely to crumble. They might just conclude you're a poor communicator and move on. But for someone with an anxious attachment style, your silence is their worst fear coming true. It confirms their deep-seated belief that they aren't worthy of consistent love and that abandonment is always right around the corner. For them, your silence isn't quiet. It's a screaming siren. On the flip side, someone with an avoidant attachment style might just react to your silence with their own, creating a feedback loop of distance that quietly ends the relationship without another word. Assuming anxiety is in the mix, this is when we start to see testing behaviors. The tension has become unbearable, and she feels she has to do something to break it. The test can't be too obvious because that would reveal her panic. So, it comes as a low-stakes, plausible deniability message, a meme that relates to an inside joke, an innocent question. Hey, did you ever watch that show I recommended? Or the classic, my phone was acting weird, just making sure you got my last message. Each of these is a probe sent out into the void, desperate for a signal. When these probes are met with more silence, the anxiety spikes. This is when the digital forensics escalate into a full-blown investigation. She's no longer just rereading your last conversation. She's checking your last active status on WhatsApp, Instagram, Messenger. A green dot next to your name becomes a dagger. He's online. He's online and he is not talking to me. This is a turning point. The silence is now confirmed to be a choice, not an accident, but an intentional act, knowing that you can respond, but are actively choosing not to transforms her anxiety into the beginnings of panic. She might check if you viewed her Instagram story. She might analyze the timestamps on your posts. She's gathering data, trying to build a picture of your life that exists without her. This obsessive search is a desperate attempt to get back some control. The quiet has made her an emotional detective in a case where she's also the main suspect. Section 4. The peak of panic and desperation. And now we get to the part of the story that gave this video its title, the peak of the spiral, the losing her mind moment. Let me be absolutely clear about this. This stage is not a guarantee. It is not a button you can press. For many people, maybe even most, the spiral just fizzles out. Self-preservation kicks in. They get angry. They get sad. And then they decide their peace is more valuable than your attention, and they move on. The silence works, but not how a manipulator hopes. It just makes it clear the connection isn't worth it. But for some, in certain high-stakes dynamics, the unchecked anxiety can cascade into a full-blown panic. The rational mind goes offline and the primal emotional brain takes over. The masks of casual and plausible deniability are gone. The testing behaviors are abandoned for raw, unfiltered desperation. This is when the floodgates open. The double, triple, and quadruple texts. They often follow a tragic pattern. First, worry and pleading. Is everything okay? I'm getting really worried. Please, just let me know you're safe. Then, when those are met with silence, the tone shifts to anger. Fine, ignore me. I can't believe how immature you're being after everything. Forget it. This anger is a defense mechanism, an attempt to grab a shred of dignity. But it's a flimsy shield. When the silence persists, the anger crumbles into the most vulnerable stage, bargaining and apology. I'm so sorry for whatever I did. I don't even know what it was, but I'll fix it. Please just talk to me. I can't handle this. I'll do anything. In this state, the loss of control is absolute. Your silence has created a psychological vacuum so powerful she feels like she's ceasing to exist. The desperate actions aren't logical. They're the frantic gasps of someone emotionally suffocating. She needs a response. Any response. A negative one is better than nothing because at least it's engagement. It's a connection, however broken. It ends the agonizing uncertainty. Let's be clear about the pain here. This is not a game. For the person experiencing this, it can feel like a profound and traumatic emotional abandonment. It can trigger deep-seated fears, leaving them feeling worthless and psychologically destabilized. When you stand back and watch this, you're witnessing genuine human suffering. And this is where the line between a strategic pause and profound emotional cruelty becomes terrifyingly thin. Understanding you have the power to cause this state in someone is a heavy responsibility. It forces you to ask a sobering question. Even if this works, is this the foundation you want to build a connection on? Section 5. Silence as a weapon. So, let's be crystal clear. What we've just described, that psychological storm, is a phenomenon to be understood, not a playbook to be followed. Intentionally pushing someone through those stages to get what you want is not strength. It is a form of emotional manipulation. Full stop. Relationship experts widely condemn this, often calling it a toxic tactic known as stonewalling. This is where we need to break down the huge difference between taking healthy space and wielding silence as a weapon. They might look the same from the outside. Both involve not communicating, but their intent is worlds apart. Stonewalling, or the punitive silent treatment, is a refusal to engage. It's designed to punish, control, and put the other person in their place. When you stonewall someone, you're sending several toxic messages at once. You're saying your feelings are so irrelevant, they don't even deserve a response. You're saying, I decide when this conversation is over. You're saying, the price for my attention is your total compliance. It creates a brutal power imbalance, leaving the other person feeling powerless and desperate. This isn't strength. It's a fortress built out of fear. Long term, it doesn't build respect. It builds resentment and destroys trust. Now, contrast that with taking healthy space. This isn't a refusal to engage. It's a temporary postponement of engagement to get your emotions in check. The intent isn't to punish, but to preserve the relationship. It's recognizing that a conversation has become unproductive and that continuing will only cause more damage. Healthy space is communicated. It comes with a verbal signpost. It sounds like, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now and can't talk about this productively. I need a few hours to clear my head and we can come back to this tonight. Or what you just said really hurt and I need some time to process it before I respond. See the difference? The first is a locked door. The second is a closed door with a promise to reopen it. The first creates anxiety and uncertainty. The second creates safety, even in conflict. The first is about controlling the other person. The second is about controlling yourself. The seductive lie peddled online is that using manipulative silence to make yourself the prize is a path to a better relationship. This is fundamentally flawed. A relationship built on the fear that one person might pull away at any moment isn't a partnership. It's a hostage situation. It doesn't foster intimacy. It fosters a desperate dependency. Section 6. The true power. Silence as a mirror, not a hammer. So, if weaponizing silence is so damaging, where's the true power? We've spent all this time deconstructing what your silence does to her. Now let's flip the script. The real transformative power of silence has nothing to do with making her lose her mind. It has everything to do with allowing you to find yours. The power isn't in silence as a hammer to break her will, but in silence as a mirror to see the truth. Think about why you went quiet in the first place. You were constantly initiating, sending 3 texts for everyone you received, making all the plans, pouring your energy into a dynamic that gave little back. Your emotional state was tied to the speed and enthusiasm of her replies. That's a profound imbalance. When you consciously decide to stop, to not send that follow-up text, to not fill every empty space, you are primarily acting upon yourself. You are breaking the pattern of your own behavior. You're breaking your own cycle of chasing, of seeking validation, of over-investing. In that quiet, you're forced to confront some tough but essential questions. What does this connection look like without your constant effort propping it up? Does it even exist? When you stop talking, is there an echo or just emptiness? Are you in a relationship with a person or with the idea of them fueled by your own chase? This is what it means to use silence as a mirror. The silence reflects the reality of the dynamic. If your absence creates a frantic, desperate chase, the mirror is showing you an unhealthy attachment either in her, in you, or in the codependent dance you're doing together. If your absence creates nothing, if your silence is met with an equal, unbothered silence, the mirror is showing you that your investment was likely one-sided all along. The connection you thought you had may have been an illusion you are funding with your own attention. This realization is where true power lies. It's not the power to make her text you. It's the power of clarity. It's the freedom that comes from seeing things as they actually are, not as you wish they were. This isn't about playing a game to become the prize. It's about cultivating a level of self-respect where you're no longer willing to audition for a role in someone's life. You realize that a healthy connection is a reciprocal flow of energy, not a one-way push. When you sit in your own silence, you reclaim your emotional center. You detach your well-being from the notification chime on your phone. You learn to be okay with the quiet. You teach yourself that your worth is not determined by someone else's responsiveness. You shift your sense of control from something external, her replies, to something internal, your own self-worth. You stop asking, how can I make her want me? And you start asking, is this dynamic what I actually want? The silence gives you the space to hear your own answer. Now, this is an incredibly complex topic and it touches on some of our deepest insecurities. The theory is one thing, but living it is another. And that's why I want to turn this conversation over to you. Have you ever been on either side of this? Have you been the one to go quiet? Or have you been on the receiving end of a sudden deafening silence? What was that experience like? What did you learn from it about the other person? And more importantly, about yourself? Share your story in the comments. There are no right or wrong answers, only experiences. Your story can help someone else who is navigating this right now. And if you're finding value in this deeper, more honest look at relationships, please hit that like button and subscribe. We explore these topics every single week, moving past the surface-level tactics to get to the psychological core of how we connect. Section 7. The Aftermath and the Path Forward. Let's play out the scenario. You went quiet. You weathered the storm, and it worked. She broke the silence. She's back, full of urgency, promising to change, desperate not to lose you. You feel a rush of validation. You feel powerful. This is the most dangerous moment of all. If you see this as a victory and just let the old dynamic resume, you've learned nothing. You've just reset a dysfunctional game on a new level. The real issues of communication and respect haven't been resolved. They've just been papered over by a crisis. The fear of your silence might keep her in line for a while, but fear is not a sustainable foundation for love. The true purpose of the silence was to create a chance for change. The goal was never just to get her to text back. It was to build a healthier dynamic. And that can't happen with more games. It requires the one thing the whole ordeal was missing: direct, honest communication. Now is the time to speak. Not from a place of anger or accusation, but from the place of self-respect you discovered in the quiet. This is where you set clear, compassionate boundaries. This is where you articulate your needs. The only sustainable path forward is through direct dialogue, not more manipulation. It might sound like this: when I don't hear from you for long periods, it makes me feel like I'm not a priority. I need more consistent communication to feel secure with you. Or I felt like I was putting in all the effort to keep things going, and it was draining me. For this to work, I needed to feel more like a two-way street. Notice these are I statements, not accusations. You always ignore me. They are expressions of your feelings and needs. You're using the clarity you gained to finally have the conversation you should have been having all along. If she's receptive and willing to work on it, then the silence, for all its danger, served a constructive purpose. But if she dismisses your feelings or falls back into old patterns, then you have your answer. The silence revealed the truth, and now you have to have the strength to accept it. So we started with a provocative title. The moment you go quiet, she'll start losing her mind. And we've seen this isn't a guarantee, but a description of a potential psychological storm, a spiral of anxiety born from a broken pattern and the pain of uncertainty. We walked through the stages not to create a roadmap for manipulation, but to foster a deeper understanding of the immense power in our communication and our lack of it. We drew a hard line between the toxic weapon of stonewalling and the healthy act of taking space. One is about punishment, the other is about self-preservation. One destroys trust, the other is an attempt to build self-rust. At the end of the day, the biggest lesson silence teaches us isn't about controlling someone else. It's about how to listen to ourselves. Your silence is a mirror. It shows you the true nature of your connections. It reveals who is willing to meet you halfway and who is happy to let you walk away. It clarifies what you are truly willing to tolerate. So, let that be the final takeaway. The ultimate goal isn't to make her lose her mind. It is for you to find your peace of mind. It's about cultivating a self-respect so deep that it no longer needs outside validation. Don't use silence to control her. Use it to understand yourself, to gauge the health of your connection, and to build a foundation of unwavering self-worth. Because it's from that foundation, and only from there, that a healthy, lasting relationship can actually